campus pastors and service leaders. I want to just give you a sense for what we're starting, the new series we're starting coming this Sunday. This will be a 6-week series. It's called Imperfect Church. It's the story of the first church and every church after it. So we're actually going to be looking through the first 6 chapters in Acts. It's probably going to be a 6-week series. The teaching team meets every Monday, and we prep our sermons. So we're prepped. We've got general outlines for the first few weeks. And this week, we finished up the outline for this Sunday. So what that means is that each teacher then will take that outline and we'll personalize it and fill it out some more. But we wanted to give you a heads up on what it's looking like and what we're thinking so far so that you can be thinking about it and preparing for your Sunday as well. The big idea for the whole series is that God's ideal for the church, His ideals for the church are perfect, and He uses imperfect people to fulfill them. So that's the idea for the series, Imperfect Church. The first week, this Sunday, we're going to talk about Acts chapter 1. We're going to talk about a perfect mission. The big idea is that our mission is to introduce others to Jesus locally and globally. So Acts 1, 6 through 9, that's where we're going to be looking. Here's what it says. It says, when Jesus, after He had died and risen from the dead, His disciples gathered around Him and they said, "Lord, are you going to restore the kingdom to Israel at this time?" And He said, "It's not for you to know the times or dates." They're talking about, when Jesus is going to establish a kingdom on earth. And He says, forget about that. He says in verse 8, "But you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes on you, and you'll be my witnesses in Jerusalem and Judea and Samaria and to the ends of the earth." And then He went and He was taken up from before their eyes, and a cloud hid Him from their sight. And so what we're going to be talking about is the fact that first we're going to mention that the disciples had their own agenda for what the mission should be. Will you restore the kingdom? That was sort of their Jewish understanding, and it was the wrong understanding. They didn't really fully understand what Jesus was accomplishing. And He was about to give them their true mission. And we're going to talk briefly about some of the agendas we have today, in 2012. Some churches have agenda of political action. Some churches have the agenda of sort of having a cocoon, a place where Christians can sort of hide out until Jesus returns. We can take care of our own. Some churches have what we might call on Sunday warm fuzzyism, that the agenda for the church is to serve me, to serve my needs, to tell me what I want to hear, that sort of thing. And we're going to basically just say none of these are really a part of Jesus' original agenda. This isn't part of the perfect mission that He gave us, but instead, and this is the second part of the sermon, that His mission for them and for us is simple and direct. His mission is to tell people about Jesus. That's the mission of the church. That's the mission of the early church. That's the mission of Alpine Church. And so we'll kind of flesh that out, that our task is to bear witness, and the power for our task is the Holy Spirit. We'll talk more about that in week 2. And then specifically that the scope is local and regional and cross-cultural and global. When he says, again, back in chapter 1, when He says, "You'll be my witnesses in Jerusalem, in Judea and Samaria to the ends of the earth," He's talking about an ever-expanding area. Jerusalem is where they were. Judea was the larger area. Samaria is cross-cultural and to the ends of the earth. And this is really the mission of the church. So we'll talk about that, flesh that out some more. And then we'll close the sermon by talking about how our strategy for specifically how we do that at Alpine Church. We'll get real specific about this. It's going to be a great follow-up message to the vision night, the vision meeting we had Monday night. We'll talk about our agenda at Alpine and how we do that specifically, and being multi-site, et cetera, et cetera. And then we'll kind of finish up the sermon by talking about verse 11. In verse 11, it says, in verse 10, it says that the disciples were looking intently into the sky, and then suddenly 2 men dressed in white stood beside them, and they said, "Men of Galilee, why do you stand here looking into the sky? Jesus is going to come back someday, just like you saw Him go." So sort of the subtext there is quit standing around, let's get to work. And that's what we're going to be. That's kind of how we'll finish it, sort of a rah-rah. Let's get to work. Let's quit talking about, let's make sure that we're doing something. Specifically encouraging individuals, take someone through foundations, that sort of thing. And we'll probably talk a little bit about how verse 14, it ends with the first thing that the disciples did then is they just began to pray. God, equip us for this, help us to do this, and we'll end the sermon by praying for us and the church, and praying that we really accomplish our mission together. So here's an idea for how you can close this out. A good way to close this is to address the person who's there who's not a believer yet. Maybe say something like this. Here's the great news. The church is not an exclusive club. Everyone is invited. If you're here today and you want to learn more about how to start a relationship with Jesus, I'll be up here along with other leaders to help answer your questions. Or maybe you're more comfortable talking to a friend who brought you today. And maybe also mention that there's more follow-up tools on today's message online on our website at today's sermon page. And we'll have Digging Deeper there. We'll have the message there if they want to watch it again, and some other useful follow-up resources. But those are some ideas to give you a sense. Feel free to email us, ask us questions specifically about this, but I hope this helps you sort of prepare for Sunday, be prayerful about Sunday. Let's just pray that God would use all of us together on this team to really make an impact and help people follow Jesus.